Hey guys, what's going on? We got another Mythic Plus video here, and this time we are playing Elemental with the Fire build. This is a plus 21 Galakrond's Fall with Tyrannical, Afflicted, and Bolstering. Kind of a pain in the week, but you know what? It is what it is. But like the other ones, I'm going to talk about other stuff while this is playing in the background. So to get into it, my first question for you guys is going to be, how do you feel about the talent-focused tier sets? I know both Enhancement Shaman and Elemental are very focused around Primordial Wave this season. My opinions on it are not good. Not that these talents are bad in any way, or the tier sets are bad. They actually benefit very, very well and work extremely well with the builds, but it feels... I don't like being forced into a specific talent just to make a tier set work. To me, it kind of feels bad, but for one season, it's usually fine. But as we go into the next season, and you know, it's a faded season, so it's not very common for this to happen, but we're going to have to play the same tier set again. It feels bad being forced into a singular talent for so long. And if you have multiple builds, like Elemental has a Storm build, and Enhancement also has a Storm build, but they don't use Primordial Wave, it feels really, really bad to have that happen. But anyways, I want to know your thoughts on it, whether you like it or not. I know in the past they've had a lot of complaints about talent sets, and you know, sometimes it's very good to have a tier set that makes use of a talent that isn't used very often, you know. So in those cases it can be good. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments, and yeah. But the other thing I want to talk about is Season 4. There have been a significant amount of dungeon changes, as well as dungeon nerfs, and I just want to go over a few of them while we're here. They're not going to be shown up on the screen, so I do apologize, but the first one I want to talk about is going to be Halls of Infusion. There's a significant amount of changes. If you remember the orb mobs in the first hallway, they do that disintegration beam or whatever on you. That is being nerfed by 42%, which is great. The only way you could stop it was a CC effect. You cannot interrupt it in any way. The other thing is they added a checkpoint in Halls of Infusion. Now, this is very key for those that went to the left side on the first hallway to gain the engineering buff, rather than going to the right and gaining the hallway little skip, right? Where you beat the first boss, the gateway's open, and you can jump down. I think it was the first boss or second one. But the other part, the biggest part, is going to be on the final boss. So he used to be... every time he would make it to full energy, he would trigger his intermission phase and push you away onto the lanes, right? And you would have to make your way through the gauntlet of orbs or weight or tsunamis or whatever it was. That has been a 50% mechanic only now, and he no longer generates energy. This means that boss just got a whole lot easier. The timer for Halls of Infusion is no longer as tight either, especially on Tyrannical weeks. They haven't changed the timer either, which is kind of crazy, but they removed this mechanic almost entirely, because if you're doing high keys, most of the time you get either 2 or 3 of these intermission phase, possibly even 4 depending on what happens, and that's going to cut your time significantly down. Other changes that have happened are mostly visuals. So a lot of the Dragonflight dungeons were missing visual effects on their abilities. For example, the first boss, his Titanic Fist, which is a frontal on the tank, but it can be avoided by the tank. That didn't have a frontal indicator or anything like that. So they added one there, and they also added one onto the dot he puts on you. So there's a magical dot that causes a zone to appear from underneath you. And as he does his intermission phases, he would increase the zone width or radius or whatever you want to call it significantly, but you would never know exactly how much. But all you knew is you had to run out and you would get it, right? So that has added a visual as well. So these things are great. One, for beginners, not knowing mechanics, but understanding that, okay, I have a circle on me. I have to either get out with this or, you know, move out a little bit, something, and deal with it, right? And it tells you that, essentially, just having that indicator that, oh, I have a mechanic on me, I have to do something with this. So that's a great thing to have and see. The next part is going to be part of Azure Vault. So they increased the timer by 1 minute, which is kind of crazy. But the Crystal Furies, which wiped most groups, they're the ones that do that massive crystal barrage. And it was like a big frontal that had almost unlimited range, in my opinion. Seeing it basically now has a precast visual as well as the impact area reduced. So that's a big thing. There's not sure how big the impact reduction is, but it's pretty massive. The conjured mystic vapors, the lasher thingies that always appear, especially in the first 2 rooms, I believe that is, they're cast. So they were the ones that would constantly cast a magical debuff on your entire group. That has been reduced, the frequency between their cast. So that's a great thing to see. The tender erratic growths, I don't remember what those ones are, but that has also been reduced, as well as the curator cast has been reduced. But the big one is the Brackenhide breaker, so the big guys right before the second last boss. Their shoulder slam knockback has been removed. They do increase the amount of physical damage you take, and it will be cast less frequently. So basically, seeing these has told me Blizzard has realized, okay, maybe these have been too tough in a sense for the lower ones, or maybe with the Mythic Plus buffs or whatever, it would get out of hand. I don't know, but it honestly seems like they're making all these dungeons super easy. As for bosses, it looks like, so there are 2 changes on the other bosses, but they're very minuscule, so I won't go over them. The biggest one is going to be the final boss. If I am correct about this, the oppressive miasma, which I believe was the orbs that would follow you around, I am not 100% sure, but I think it is. It has been removed on Mythic difficulty, which is kind of crazy. I doesn't say anything about Mythic Plus difficulty, but I'm assuming it's going to apply to both. Crystallize now pulses arcane damage while the crystal is shielded. So those are the little crystals that appear, so they pulse damage now, essentially. And Crackling Vortex now has a larger movement radius. So I'm not really sure which ones are which, but it seems like if those orbs are removed, which I don't think they were, but if they are, that makes this fight honestly pointless, in my opinion. It's super easy. But there are a lot of Brackenhide Hollow changes to make things a bit easier as well. So the Shapers no longer summon Lashers, a whole bunch, like Stink Breath, which was a big one. One, his frontal gets a visual now, and it can be dodged by the player, as well as it was shrunk a little bit. There's a whole lot of things, just dots and stuff that have been removed. Like a lot of people were dying in the a lot of melee die in the first room to the little fixate things. The Claw Fighter Bloody Bite, which I believe is the dot that would take most people out, I believe that's been removed, which is quite a big one. But for the encounters, the first boss, the warband of the 3, Predator Instincts, haste bonus reduced to 5%, which was 10. Mark of Butchery, damage frequency has been increased to 1 second rather than 0.5. So it's they increased the damage time in between damage by 100%, so you're not taking as much. They basically reduced it by half. Gash's Frenzy has been reduced by 21%, and Gash Frenzy's... Ooh, I'm struggling here. Gash Frenzy's duration has been reduced to 15 seconds rather than 45 seconds, making it so it's not as deadly if people can't heal through it. Quite a significant change. Algathar Academy's changes, so the Scepter no longer does its Arcane Rain. Spectral Invoker Arcane Missiles damage has been reduced by 50%. I don't really remember that one, but yeah, it's there. Cross Firestorm frequency has been reduced, so that's the fire swirlies that appear on the ground during the bird boss. And then the Savage Peck initial and periodic damage has been reduced, so that is the tank buster damage reduced. The final boss has a new mythic mechanic, which is weird. I don't know what it's going to be. As for Notheris, they changed the way the burning chains worked. If you remember, you would grab them and hit them with the mobs, and they now take increased damage rather than just get dealt damage. So they increased that by 50%, so that'll be interesting. As for bosses, there isn't a huge amount, but all I know is they're going to be super duper easy now. No good offensive. There really wasn't much changes. Ruby Life Pool, same thing. Not a whole lot of changes, and same with Ultimate of the Legacy. But as seeing these changes, the dungeons are going to be significantly easier for both the top players and the lower players. The lower players are going to have an easier time learning these fights, which is great, especially with the increased visuals. I love having visuals on almost everything. It makes it easier for people to understand what's happening. Because if you don't have a visual and the boss is lining up a frontal cone, it's like, oh, he's just casting something. I guess we'll just let it happen. And if there's no visual, how are people supposed to learn, right? But yeah, these changes either show that Blizzard has realized, okay, these dungeons may have been way too tough, which I didn't think was too much, but now it's going to require a lot less CC, so this means a lot less communication in between the groups in a sense. Now, can't say for certain until things have been truly tested out. I think people did a lot of testing on the PTR. I know that happened recently, but I'm not too sure on what exactly happened during that. But based on these patch notes, it's kind of crazy that they're taking these 40 and 50% hits on these mobs. I mean, what was it? Oh my god, I forgot the name of it. 1 second. I just talked about it. Halls of Infusion. That was one of the worst dungeons to do during, I think it was season 1 or season 2. I don't remember. But it was the F tier dungeon for all weeks, no matter what. No matter what week it was F tier because of the way it was. There's so much damage from the trash mobs, and there's so much damage from the bosses. But with these changes, it could be looking like one of the easiest dungeons out there now, which is great to see. So, and getting to do these dungeons once again, I'm super excited for. But yeah, as for dungeon changes, I can't wait. They look exciting. They look like they're going to be a lot easier, a lot less stressful during certain moments as well. So yeah, but anyways, that is going to be it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed me rambling on about the changes and let me know if you like the tier set lock-in for the talents. But yeah, that is it. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Laters!